welcome to Game Milwaukee. So last season, a lot of topics came up. You guys, we've read all your messages, and the topics that came up were interracial relationships, polyamorous relationships, and being a queer woman. Those were the three you guys wanted to hear the most, and they were most talked about and dissected and discussed, and we're here to bring it back. And also, to add on one of my personal favorite topics, being a queer parent with Renee.
Hi.
I figured I was just like, how am I going to talk about all these things? Where's Renee? Where's Renee?
Multifaceted.
Yeah. So let's just jump into this. Like, I feel like we should just start with polyamorous relationships.
Okay.
That's probably the hottest topic.
Absolutely, that's totally fine.
Especially with Milwaukee, that's very, a lot of the times we're in Milwaukee, they're very set on conventional relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about it. Tell me your experience. How's that been, especially as a mother?
So my first experience with polyamory was when I was actually dating my now ex-husband. There were several reasons for that. Like, I guess initially it came down to I was so young when he and I started dating, and he was older. I knew I wasn't. It started with me not being ready for sex and letting him go and do his thing. And even as I got older, eventually it turned into, okay, well, now we're doing this, but now I feel like I want to explore other relationships as well, particularly with women. And that's kind of where it turned into. Now, in my 30s, it's more of I want to still explore other relationships, but more so for myself, less so for my partner, if that makes any sense.
Yes, and I have to ask too, I know we talked a little bit about this, but with polyamorous relationships and as a bisexual person,
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of the times it really falls on like we talked about having the equilibrium of having a woman and a man, or is it just the connections you come in general, or are there some things a woman can do that a man can't, or explain, because I think a lot of people that don't know about it are gonna ask that question.
I would say as far as like, is there something that a man can give me that a woman cannot? My short answer would be no. I mean, obviously sexually that's different, but outside of sex, no, absolutely not. Like the emotional connection, the mental connection, it's going to be very similar, if not the same, because, it's about how that connection affects me, and I'm the same person.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, I don't really think there's like a big difference. It's essentially two sides of me, because I'm a Gemini, I have to keep both.
Team Gemini.
But that's where that comes from.
Okay, because from my experiences of what I've heard, and mind you, I've had not many experiences with women, but I do feel that there are some people out there that they connect differently with women than they do men for some bisexuals. From what I've heard, I didn't know if that factored into that.
I mean, in a small way, I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
I haven't had any long-term relationships with women as of yet, so I mean, that's kind of hard for me to talk about. I've had short-term relationships with women, but nothing very long-term as of yet. So I guess I'll just have to see how it happens.
So let's also talk about it. You've had children in a polyamorous relationship. How was that? Because I think a lot of people watching that don't know much about this, that must be a very foreign topic to them.
Yeah. So when my ex-husband and I, for a while, for 2 years, he did have another girlfriend. She had her own child. He and I had our own 2 children. And I mean, there were lots of situations where we would bring those families together, and my kids even still today look at her daughter as their younger sister, even though there's no biological connection. I'm fine with that. Like, that's your sister Ariel, that's cool. I don't, as far as like how did they feel about dad having a girlfriend, they didn't really realize that's how deep it was, because they were so young at that time. I mean, my son was only probably like 6 or 7, and he's the oldest out of all 3 of them. So they were really too young to understand like the complexities of adult relationships. Like, we never even sat them down and it's like, okay, this is dad's girlfriend. It wasn't even like that, because it wasn't, why about it? Like, they were like, they're not going to change anyway, either way. So
Yeah. And we were talking earlier, and I wanted to make sure we covered this because I think there are a lot of single parents out there. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people with 2 parents. There's a lot of people that have split up parents, and they have, stepfather, stepmother, but that makes them have 3 or 4 parents.
Yeah.
And the way I see it, this is the same situation, and to some extent.
Yeah, in a roundabout way, I believe that it is, because, I mean, you look at it like in a situation where, let's say, your parents are separated or divorced or whatever, what have you, and now dad has another relationship, mom has another relationship, and those relationships just add to that support system. I feel like it's a similar mentality in polyamory with children, where, okay, so you have your two, I guess bio parents or nuclear parents, whatever way you want to say it. But then, if mom has a boyfriend and dad also has a girlfriend, it's the same thing, except that you're all doing it together versus separately. And that adds to, that extra layer of support I feel to those children if they need it. Especially once the relationship becomes long-term and it's gone on for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, you're going to include your children in that in some way.
Absolutely.
Obviously they don't need to know details because that's not their business, but it is still something that does affect them in that way, in a positive way.
You know me, I'm married to an Asian man,
Mm-hmm.
and you and I have both dated plenty of different types of people,
Mm-hmm.
just every color. Let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about these interracial relationships, because there's so many things that come along with a white woman with a black man with an Asian man. There's so many things, and whether you switch the genders around, switch the skin colors, there's so many stigmas, particularly in Milwaukee.
Exactly, and I definitely agree with the stigma part. I get all the time that either I'm just only out here dating black men for attention, or that it's because I'm just this big whore that's going to do all of these things. That's neither one of them is necessarily true.
Mm-hmm.
And I get called,
especially as a bisexual woman on top of that.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I used to get called out a lot, like, oh, well, you only date black men. No, I don't only date black men. I've dated white men, I've dated Filipino men, I'm open to dating whoever. Like, your race is not one of those things that I look at when I'm looking for a potential partner. That's kind of ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
But, my ex-husband is black, my children are mixed. My current boyfriend of 6 years is black as well. That's because those are people that I've had that connection with, and that, I was able to build that relationship with long term. It wasn't because, oh, well, I'm just looking for black people. Like,
yeah.
What the heck?
We were talking about this too. One of the things that really bothers me is most people really don't know me when it comes to who I've dated over the years, and that's totally fine. I think a lot of the times when something's serious, I don't put it out right away. But I've dated every single color of person, and now that I'm in a married relationship, and we're people, even to this day, or even before that, when it was serious and picking up and it was more public, people would say like, oh, you got that yellow fever, you got that Asian persuasion,
so
and it's
irritating.
Yeah, but they'd always, I'm just kidding, but it's interesting who would say it.
There's a little bit of truth in every just kidding.
Yeah, but it's interesting who would say it. I think aside from that, the surface value bothering me, I think there'd be the who's saying it. It would usually be generally white men or black men. No other type of person would say it. And it's just very interesting who's specifically saying what.
It's very interesting. And even with my boyfriend and I, we'll go, even just simply to the gas station or to the store or something, and obviously there's a lot of people that really just don't care about it, but we still get stares, even from younger people that are like around our age or even younger, like, why is he with her? Oh my god, why is she with him? Why are they? Mind you, these are people that would never give either one of us the time of day any other way.
Yeah.
You would never have talked to me, you would never have tried to date me, but now all of a sudden it's an issue because I'm dating someone black.
Yeah.
Or now all of a sudden he's a race traitor. That's the one I hate the most. He's a race traitor because he's dating a white girl.
Yeah.
You would have never talked to him any other way. Like, you don't care.
And as we were talking too, in the 90s, as a biracial child, I vividly remember kids didn't understand that a black and white person could make a baby. It was just, they thought black people made black babies and white people made white babies. There was no in between. That was still a relatively new phenomenon. I think you have to explain. There's still a conversation about it.
Yeah.
And I think particularly here in Milwaukee, and the reason being is we talked about on the coasts, whether you're like California or Florida or what have you, it's not that much of a topic.
Right.
No one really looks at you twice.
It's more of a normal thing, whereas like you said, here in Wisconsin especially, it's not.
It's not completely there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think what parts you go to Milwaukee too, it's different.
I agree. And then like I mentioned to you as well, like people always want to question my son's paternity. I'm like, look, their dad was the only man I was with until we separated. Trust me, I know his paternity. Like, I have no doubt. Just because my son looks like me and has my fair complexion and has my blue eyes and everything, that doesn't mean that I question his paternity.
You guys have such beautiful children, though. I just want to say, children are gorgeous.
And like, people would even go to my son directly and say, well, how do you know your dad's black? I'm like, because he raised me? Like.
But what I really admire about you too is you been bringing your kids to Pride Fest for how many years now?
Yeah, exactly. So it's probably 6.
Yeah.
Right about. So since my daughter was 5 and she's 11 now, so.
How is that? I mean, growing up in a very queer household, how is it?
I mean, like I said, it's not, I don't really know how to answer that because even with me being bisexual, there's topics that come up probably a little bit more often around, masculine femininity, if that's even a thing.
Yeah.
Who do you want to date? Why do you want to date them? Like my son used to say, like for a while, I don't care if the person that I date is white or black. And I'm like thinking, like in my head, like that's great that you don't. You're not supposed to, but okay. Like he had one little girlfriend that was black and one little girlfriend that was white, and okay, that's fine. My daughter has crushes on every person, like whatever.
Yeah.
And then but going to Pride Fest with me, like the first year I kind of made both of them love just because it was something for us to do. It's something I wanted to do, and I wanted them to experience that with me. Ever since then, I asked both of them every year, do you want to go? You don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go? My son pretty much is like, no, there's not really anything for me to do there, which is valid because it's more of like a dance party is how I look at it. My son is not really into dance or music or any of that, and I get it. Like, that's fine. You don't have to go. You can stay here and play video games. Have fun. Whereas my daughter, like, she gets more lit than me. Like, she gets in there and she, woo!
I have to say, on top of that, growing up, Pride Fest at first, from what I was told as a kid, that's not my dad would tell me it's not a place for kids. Mm-hmm. That's a very evil lifestyle, and I'm very happy to see that people can bring their kids. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in the years that I've been going, more and more kids have come, and it's more of a family event. It's just empowering to know that we're more of a complete picture. Mm-hmm. It's not, I think a lot of, what's the word to say? People say like, oh, you're forcing that lifestyle upon them. You know what I mean? we discussed.
Not at all forcing it. I mean, I want them to know that this is a lifestyle that some people decide on. If you decide that that's for you, that's fine. If you decide it's not for you, that's fine. I've had several conversations with my children, probably once a week, honestly. If you want to date someone black, white, yellow, purple, if you want to date a man or a woman or something in between or something outside of that.
Whatever makes you happy.
As long as you're happy, this is the message I tell my children all the time. I don't care who you date, as long as you are happy, they treat you well, and it's a healthy relationship.
Yes.
Like, everything else, you can do whatever.
And I feel like a lot of people overthink things, and I know we talked about this before. This is the reason why I'm definitely an advocate for having polyamorous relationships on the show, because I think I've heard that, not even just polyamorous relationships, all different types of queer people, because I think I've heard before, people can say, well, so-and-so doesn't represent the gay community. I've heard that I don't. I've heard bisexuals don't. I've heard people of color don't, whatever the case is. Mm-hmm. And we're a big umbrella, and I feel that we grow so much by hearing these different types of walks of life. Mm-hmm. I think another thing is, too, we've talked about, whether you're in a polyamorous relationship, a monogamous relationship, whatever the case is, I think it's universal that everyone knows that we've talked about everyone, at least one point in time, has fallen in love with more than one person at once. Mm-hmm. That is completely normal.
Right. And it is a thing that happens, and kind of like we were mentioning before, when you're in a monogamous relationship, if something like that happens, that's just you making the conscious decision to be like, I'm not going to explore that. I have these feelings, I will acknowledge them, but I'm not going to explore it further than that. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're in a polyamorous relationship or really any other type of ethical non-monogamy, well, I do want to explore this a little more and, see where it goes and see if it comes into anything more. Mm-hmm. Maybe it won't, maybe it will.
But how do you deal with, I guess if I felt that I was going to do that, I think one of my biggest concerns would be that, my partner or partners would fall in love with someone else. Or, you know what I mean? It would be, it's a lead to be a lot of insecurities, mm-hmm. and I think jealousy could come up, and I think that would be a fear of most people.
That is 100% valid, and it's very common, even within, polyamorous people or other people that practice ethical non-monogamy. The insecurity, the jealousy, the concern about, well, what if this person loves this person more than me? What if they do this better? What if they like them more because of XYZ thing? And especially with my boyfriend and I, we have a very interesting dynamic because I am polyamorous, but he does not want to be polyamorous. He wants to stay monogamous. Mm-hmm. And that's absolutely fine. Like, if you want to only date me and just be in that space, that's fine. I'm not going to force you to be with someone else. But at the same time, he does accept that I am polyamorous, and he, does encourage me to explore that.
I think a lot of this kind of comes down to, what just resonates with you. I think a lot of people in monogamous relationships would adapt their lives to fit their situation. But I think when it comes to polyamorous relationships, I think when we talked earlier, the best way you described it was the other person looking elsewhere has nothing to do with the other person.
Right, yeah. Being polyamorous, it has nothing to do with any inadequacy that my partner may have. And usually they don't. Like my boyfriend now, we've been together 6 years. He's an excellent partner for me. He's an excellent co-parent with my children. They both love him very dearly. He's able to go and pick them up from school and help me out in that way. When I was used to work late nights, he would be at home doing homework with them and making sure they have dinner and all of those things that a normal dad would do. And obviously I wouldn't want to lose that just because, I want to go over here and see a baby. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I would rather stay with him and, with his understanding, with his knowledge, with his consent, I want to go explore this over here because I honestly have been in so many long-term relationships, which is not a bad thing, but I went from being in a 10-year relationship to now a 6-year relationship. And, so that whole dating around thing never really happened for me. So finding out what I want and where, I'm most comfortable, I don't know. Even at 34, I don't know.
Well, let me build on to this a little bit. We talked about interracial relationships and the stigmas that come with that, and people, like, particularly in Milwaukee, polyamorous relationships and stigmas come with that, and being a bisexual woman. How do you navigate with all this and choosing who you have around you?
I don't care what people think about me.
You don't?
That's like how it goes. Like, you're either going to like me or you're going to hate me, and there's nothing I can do, say, or act to change your opinion of me.
Do you ever feel that sometimes you have to protect kids from some of these things that come up? Because people can just say some of the most vile things sometimes, you know what I mean? Where they just say whatever comes out. Especially when we talked earlier, people in Milwaukee, people put people in boxes all the time.
I get a lot more of these comments online versus in person.
Really?
So my children aren't really affected by it. Like, they're not.
It's online.
Yeah. They're not really a part of it.
Yeah.
Because obviously I'm not talking to my children about every single thing that happens on Facebook.
Well, I just find it interesting because being in an interracial relationship, I get most of the comments in person. That's why.
I get a lot more comments, that are sideways like that online.
Mm-hmm.
More so than I do in person. And part of that is probably because I really just don't see people in person as often. Like, it's not for lack of wanting, it's just my schedules don't always mesh up with people. So, like, people have something to say to me, they usually will message me directly. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine that you feel that way, but what am I supposed to do about it? Like, the trick is to care about people without caring about what they think. That's what it is. And that's what it comes down to for me.
I like this. I think, this conversation from just listening to you has just been so enlightening because I feel that all of these things, queer parents, interracial relationships, polyamorous relationships, and what was the last one?
The bisexuality and all of this.
All of it. It's been just so many parts. Your life must be an adventure, hey?
Every day is a new adventure.
Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing this, Renee.
Not at all. No problem.
All right, you heard it here, folks. We're here at Milwaukee, and we're signing out.